Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Your Filipina marriage expectations. Be realistic. Many of us have heard about how Filipinas make great wives. Many of us have experienced that ourselves. This all depends on the right Filipina. This is where you will need discernment and prayer on who to marry. And as far as the expectations, here are some tips that I have learned early on that I want to share with you. Number one, success will always require give and take. I'm sure you already know that. It may be best though if you do most of the giving early on to set the tone and to have a successful relationship. You've heard it say marriage should be 50-50, and I'm not exactly sure what to make of that statement. I just know for me, I don't see any problem with, especially early on, being the one that does most of the giving. Your wife may be in shock, leaving her country for the first time. She will certainly be homesick, and I think you want to be as giving and supportive and nurturing as possible early on to set the tone. And you don't have to worry about her just taking and taking and taking. If you treat her right early on and get off to a good start, she's going to be giving later on. But you have to understand that it's a huge change. She's not going to drop everything she knows about her life in the Philippines when she gets there. So I would say be prepared to be doing most of the giving early on. Number two, don't expect her to be okay with you spending a lot of time doing what you used to be doing when you were single. She didn't come this far away to be spending most of her time alone. She is going to be like a fish out of water. Number three, I told my wife from the start that I would do all that I can do to defer to her wishes so that she would be comfortable to marry me and to come here knowing that she was going to marry somebody that was going to do his best to try to be unselfish with her. And you could call it putting her up on a pedestal if you want. I don't have a problem with that. I wanted her to know that my marriage was going to be about her and taking care of her and her needs, and I have not had anything to worry about with reciprocation. And that's just part of leading and putting her first right away, and she has responded and been a helper to me. Don't expect her to eat brown rice if you're into healthy eating like I try to be. Brown rice is what I was eating. I've heard it's better than the white rice, but in the Philippines most of the rice is going to be white rice because that's what's more affordable. And although I do know one Filipina here that has tried to talk to my wife about eating brown rice because they have discovered that it's healthier. My wife right now still is into the white rice. Don't expect her to be enamored with being in your country, so enamored with being in your country that she isn't interested in the Philippines anymore. I think most Filipinas would prefer, all things being equal, to stay in the Philippines, and yet a lot of them would like to leave because of the situation there, the poverty, the difficulty in finding a job. But I don't think they stay awake all night trying to think of how to get away from family and friends in the Philippines. While dating, talk to her about what you see marriage to you being like. And this, again, I tried to do to help make her be more comfortable with the idea of marrying me. Another one, while dating and even after marriage, encourage her to tell you her needs, because you can't tell what anybody's thinking. So just ask her, hon, is everything okay? Is there anything I can do? A good idea would be to ask her now and then what she's thinking, feeling, believing, or experiencing, especially if she's not very talkative. Asking her what she's thinking, feeling, believing, experiencing can help her to open up. A beautiful Filipina is a woman like any other, so what generally works with one woman should work with another, and the same for which doesn't work. Always be mindful of the sacrifice she has made being away from home, and let her use social media. She probably will use it more than you're comfortable with. Maybe she uses it while you're eating. That's possible. My wife has tried to take a leading role in getting us to not use our phones while we're eating, and because of her influence, we do pretty good at that. She doesn't like it at work when I sit down and just kind of forget about things, and I start eating and using my phone at the same time. So, but your Filipina might not be quite that way, and you can talk to her about it and say, hey, hon, isn't it a good idea if we don't use our phones when we eat? Early on, she might be spending a lot of extra time on her phone. Expect that there might be some misunderstanding because of the language difference. I discovered with my wife while we were texting each other, making notes to each other, we had most of our disagreements. When we were talking, we didn't seem to have as many, arguments about and misunderstandings. There were times I would tell myself, why is she so upset? What did I do? What did I say? Well, it was just, in the way it's written, in the way she saw it, and she thought it meant something else. And so just be aware that in your situation there might be some things where you're not sure why she's taking you a certain way, and you just have to clarify, I guess, do you understand, what I'm saying? This is what I mean, or try to say the same thing in a different way. Another one, you might get the silent treatment now and then. My wife has never gone full tempo, T-A-M-P-O, basically long-term silent treatment, which means this could go on for hours or half a day. Some people have said it goes on for 2 days. Hopefully her persuasion is not to take that long. And if it does happen, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't say, hey, let's talk about it, what's going on. Even if you ask her, what are you feeling right now, you're probably not going to get an answer. But when tempo ends, it ends, and everything is fine as if it never happened. That's how that, I've read that's what happens with others, and that's how it happens with my wife. Be mindful and respectful of cultural differences, and we really haven't had any issues here. Maybe public display of affection. Filipina will likely feel that that's indecent, and you might not understand that, but that's, I think, a cultural thing more or less. Avoid public arguments with her. You see a lot of Americans do this, and this is a big no-no for Filipina. She's not, even if she's upset with you, she's not likely to confront you in public, more likely to say something about it in private. So keep that in mind, and don't take things out in public. Deal with things at home. Avoid public arguments with her. She won't like you being rude with her or anyone else, so that could get you tempo if you're rude to somebody else. Even if you're really upset, if you blow off some steam at somebody and overreact, she's not going to like that, because rudeness is something that, and complaining are two things that Filipinas do a great job of avoiding. Don't be intimidated but be realistic about age differences. Let me read this again. Don't be intimidated by, but be realistic about age difference related issues such as frequency of sexual intimacy, overall energy to do things as you get older, if she is much younger, and priorities like her pursuits. She may have a lot of life ahead of her. If you marry a younger Filipina, you're not, probably sexually in your prime anymore. If you're an older guy, and she's a younger woman, and you gotta, be mindful of her needs, and I guess maybe without elaborating more, you'll just have to marry a younger Filipina and find out. But be glad that she's got so much energy. Be glad that she has so much life in her, and that's a good thing. Don't try to act like a younger guy. I don't think she wants that. She wants maturity. It's one of the reasons she married you over a younger man. So don't try to impress her by acting young or dressing young. Just be yourself. And also, kind of along those lines, let her dress you the way she wants. This is a good thing also. Just be prepared for that. Your appearance to a Filipina is very important, and she might think some of your clothes are boring or something, and just be open to her suggestions, about this type of shirt or these type of shoes or something like that. Even your hairstyle or something along those lines. Also, she probably will be more frugal than you. That's just something to be aware of. That's a good thing too. But on the other hand, there are times when I tell my wife, you get what you pay for. If we go this route, I think we're going to be unhappy down the road, because there's a reason things cost more or less. So she's probably going to be on the frugal side. I know there's this perception that once a Filipina gets here and has money and she's going to be spending all of her money and your money too, and that probably is not going to be the case. Another one, be careful not to control her. These are just marriage expectations, and be realistic. Sometimes you've probably already aware of these things. I'm just trying to share them to you from my perspective. But don't try to control her. That's one of her biggest fears in marrying a foreigner and leaving her country, is that you will try to control her or try to beat her. Both of those are not good things. Be mindful of the curse in Genesis 3, which is basically each person's desire to control the other. I want to say it's around Genesis 3:16, God pronounces a curse on marriage, where it talks about the wife's desire will be for her husband. That is talking about a desire to control him. And it's the same thing when it talks about the husband, about his desire to control his wife. And that is overcome in Ephesians 5 by being controlled by the Spirit, so that we don't act out these natural tendencies to control each other. Another one, watch the tone of your voice. That's kind of considered along the lines of being rude. But, if you're really animated like I can get to be and raising my voice, it's a big turnoff to a Filipina. Accept a certain degree of jealousy from other men, and even some disdain. A lot of this you may never know about, or other people may tell you, or you may sense that some of your best friends are alienating you a little bit. They're probably just jealous that you dared to do something that they right now might not have the courage to do. Accept a certain degree of criticism from others who don't understand your intentions. So I guess this depends on how open the people around you are to talk about things. I usually kind of get out in front of those things and talk about why I married her, what I was looking for, and so on, just to give people a better understanding, so they're not going to have misgivings about our relationship. And it does matter to me what other people think, so I like to be able to explain my motivations for marrying my wife. My wife was 26 when we married, and very mature, and this is a good age. I would say that the younger your wife is, or the bigger the age difference, the more mature you're going to have to be. I do kind of shudder sometimes if I see a really younger Filipina and an older man, because I wonder, what does he treat her like? And this is, expectations. It just comes down to expectations. My wife is younger, but I She, in her mind, is basically my age. She doesn't even want me talking to her or calling her young. Never did. Even from the start, she bristled at that thought, and was focusing on how mature she is. And she really is. Now that we've been married for 3 years, I see it more and more, just what a mature person she is. And, respect her individuality, and try not to treat her like a daughter. If that's something that you might be inclined to do, just treat her like your wife. Despite an age difference, don't treat her like a daughter. Last one here, try to talk candidly about everything that is important to you. Try to understand her, living with her in an understanding way. She's not going to understand you because you're from a different culture, probably a different age bracket, and talk to her about how she's feeling about things, because a Filipina is more likely to not say things if she thinks it will offend you. She's going to be non-confrontational, and so I try to just encourage my wife to open up and talk about things. If she's unhappy, then just let me know what she's unhappy about, and try to be nice about it, and we can talk about that. So what helps me is that I've lived most of my life now. Most of it's in the rearview mirror, and my wife now is my priority. She has not lived most of her life and still has dreams and things to fulfill, and I like to use the rest of mine to help her fulfill her dreams. I recommend investing in her life. And the Bible, marriage is a picture of Christ and the church, and Christ did everything he could to meet all the needs of his wife, and then give her a wonderful eternity with him. So he used, he gave his life for her. She's his helper, but also he gives up his life for her, which means he died for her. So just some things to think about. I hope this helps. I would suggest learning as much as you can about the interactions between Filipinas and other foreigners, because it is different, and you'll probably have some expectations. I just hope they're realistic. Life is never going to be perfect here on earth, and so I just want to be realistic about my love beyond the sea.